Welcome back to Weekly Culture Conversations. I'm Danielle Peters, and every week I take a moment to reflect on real culture conversations that I've had with early learning leaders. And they're not polished stories, they're lived, honest, sometimes messy conversations. Some leaders I speak with are well into their culture journey, some are just beginning, some are exhausted, and some are quietly hopeful. And this space is for all of that. This week had a really beautiful energy to it, and it started with Straw Day. And I actually loved having that opportunity to pause and reflect. As a couple of transplants who've built our life here, it gave my husband and I a chance to reflect on, what this country really means to us, our friendships, our business, the life we've created, and the opportunities that we certainly don't take for granted. We genuinely love this country and are incredibly proud to be Aussies. And that feeling of gratitude and grounding really flowed straight into my work week. Because after that pause, that day off to relax and refresh, it felt like leaders came back lighter, more present, more ready. There was a real sense of, okay, we're back. Let's do this properly this year. And I loved that. It wasn't rushed, not frantic, just clear, optimistic energy. And honestly, that tone showed up in almost every conversation I had. One moment that really stayed with me this week that came from a follow-up conversation with a leadership team in Mackay. And this time their area manager joined the call. Just so happens I actually knew her from previous when we worked together about 10 years ago, and she was a center director, and it was actually, back in 2015, and I facilitated a fish team experience at her service. So, wow, 10 years, same smile, same warmth, same calm presence. It was so good to see her smiling face online again. But back to that leadership team in Mackay, what struck me wasn't the nostalgia, but it was the evolution of this particular team. And they'd worked incredibly hard over the past 2 years. They've rebuilt their reputation. They've stabilized their team. They've protected standards through some tough seasons. And what was really clear about this is the next phase isn't about starting over. It's about formalizing the culture that already exists, creating shared language and expectations, and supporting educators to speak up and lead, making that culture visible to families and the wider community, and protecting the good work that that leadership team already did so it doesn't slow or break under pressure. That distinction matters because leaders don't need to be told they haven't done enough. They need support to hold what they've already built. That theme echoed right across the rest of the week. I had a really exciting follow-up conversation with an approved provider from a growing national early learning group, and they confirmed that they are going ahead with our 5-month structured supported system to help bring what they've already worked so hard on to life consistently across their services. And this isn't about starting from scratch. It's about building on the foundation they've already laid and making it easier to sustain it as they grow. And they are going to grow. Exciting times ahead. The focus was for them on really creating culture champions across the group while also supporting the extremely busy executive leadership team who care deeply about culture and don't have the capacity really to carry it all on their own. And that's where we come in as their culture partner, someone who helps hold that structure, guide the process, and keep culture consistent, visible, and lived every day without adding more pressure to the leaders who already have a lot on their plate. It makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? And I can't wait to officially announce this new client once they're onboarded. I'm genuinely excited about this partnership. Woo, having a choke there for a moment. Alongside that conversation, we also had really good conversations with some other center directors, and one leader that said something that really struck me is she shared that she finally clicked. It clicked to her that culture was no longer a nice to have, it was a must have. And honestly, I'm so glad that culture is now being assessed because it makes absolute sense. Culture is the feel of your center. It's the way educators do things when no one is watching. It's how families experience your service day to day. And it's in everyday interactions with children and each other and with leadership. Excuse me. Maybe I'm going to have to redo this. It all flows directly to culture that's being intentionally created or not. And you know what? It starts with the leadership team. Leaders can't be too busy anymore. This is the work, because when culture is clear, consistent, and supported, everything else gets lighter. Days feel less heavy. Teams work better together. That ripple effect touches every part of the service. This isn't theory, this is real lived results. Another really special thing that happened in week 4 that I almost forgot to mention is we officially launched. Module 1 is complete, 100% early learning Happy Team Culture Masterclass. This is the work our clients do in between the monthly culture consults. And honestly, it's the secret sauce that brings it all together. This isn't extra work, it's the structure that helps leaders stay focused, confident, and consistent between our support calls. To the best of my knowledge, this is the only exclusive early learning culture program that takes leaders step by step through culture creation with short videos, practical resources, that ongoing support. I am incredibly proud of what we've put together here. This program was built from 14 years of my culture experience, but I took the original Happy Team Culture Masterclass that I spent a full year using with our existing early learning clients, 33 centers, real leaders, real feedback, and I listened closely to what worked and what didn't, and what leaders actually had time to complete within their already busy schedules. And from that, I created something extremely special, a fully early learning specific program designed to support child-safe culture in a way that's practical, human, and sustainable. It's fun, it's clear, and it's designed to help leaders to get to their dream culture, one that's visible, consistent, and child-safe, faster, and with more clarity than ever thought possible. Seeing this come to life in week 4 was one of those quiet moments where you realize this work matters. I did a happy dance for sure. The biggest in-person moment of the week for me was my trip to the Central Coast in New South Wales to facilitate a culture session with Footprints Early Learning Centre in Arana. Hopefully I said that right. And this was a previous client, a center director who's been there for over 15 years. Several of the educators were there more than 10 years. Hopefully I got that right as well. But there was so much deep experience, deep commitment, and like so many services, they've had a massive few years since COVID. And there's a pattern I keep hearing across the sector. The industry didn't bounce back from COVID. It adapted and just kept going. And this session was held on a Saturday outside work hours, and 28 team members, educators, admin, operations team, they all chose to be there. Of course, they were either paid or it was a day in lieu, but really quickly, I realized this was going to be a really great experience. The team didn't really need their passion reignited. You could see their love for the children, the way that they care for the families. Their pride in the work was already shining. What they needed instead was some personal tools and an opportunity to reset. So I gave them tools to manage things that were outside of their control, tools to understand how their attitude, presence, and actions shape culture, tools to bring those values to life in practical human ways. We slowed right down. We talked about behaviors, not blame, choice, not pressure, ownership, not expectation. By the end of the day, each educator or each person that attended had created their personal action plan, and they'd broken into their room teams to talk about what they wanted to start doing, stop doing, and to celebrate what they were doing already more intentionally. The room felt lighter, not hyped, not noisy. Well, at times it was noisy, but grounded. And as I rushed off to the airport, I genuinely felt like we could have stayed another hour if I had the time. But underneath that positive energy sat a very real question. How do we not let this go flat on Monday? So that's the important thing. When I look across the conversations of this week, one non-obvious theme connects all of them. This week wasn't about creating culture. It was about protecting good culture from being worn down by busyness. Leaders aren't lacking care. They're definitely not lacking commitment. They're lacking structure that supports consistency. And they're starting to recognize that momentum, if it isn't held, fades. And that's exactly why we help early learning leaders embed child-safe cultures that are visible, consistent, and lived every day through a structured, supported system, not a one-off PD training, because culture doesn't fail from lack of passion. It fades when there's nothing holding it in place once the day-to-day takes over. And as we head into February, the month of love, and also the month of my wedding anniversary, I want to leave you with this question. Do you love what you do? Because if you don't, it shows. And if you do, it shows too. So how you show up, how you speak, how you lead, how your team feels when they're around you. So as we move into this next month, how are you choosing to show up with love at work? How are you taking care of your culture so your team can feel it, trust it, be inspired by who you are and how you lead? Because when leaders lead with care, clarity, and intention, culture shifts. Days feel lighter. Teams work better together. People feel proud of where they work. And if you'd like some guidance in building a culture that your team genuinely loves and protects together, I'd love to hear from you. Reach out. Tell me about you. Tell me about your team. I'm here. I'm ready. Let's do this.